If you've ever worked on a big application, you know this feeling, right? Your logs, they start out as this source of truth, this helpful tool, and then they just descend into this chaotic, expensive mess. Well, today, we're going to look at a way to tame that chaos, but not in production. We're going to talk about fixing it right where it starts, in the code itself. And let's be real about this. We have all been there. You're trying to hunt down a bug, and you're just drowning in logs that are totally inconsistent, or they're missing that one critical piece of data you need. It's not just annoying, it's a huge drag on everything, and honestly, a massive risk. So I gotta ask you, does that sound familiar? Are your logs just this fire hose of unstructured text that's always breaking your dashboards and costing an absolute fortune to store? If you're nodding along right now, you definitely know the pain of what you could call Wild West logging. And the thing is, these problems just snowball. Your dashboards break, so you miss critical alerts. Someone accidentally logs PII, and now you're looking at huge fines and broken trust. Your cloud bill is all over the place because of high cardinality data. And then the auditors show up. A lack of governance at that point? That's a full-blown crisis. It's just not a sustainable way to work. So what do we do about it? Well, the answer is a pretty fundamental shift in how we think. Instead of trying to clean up the mess after the fact, we have to move that governance, that control, all the way to the very beginning. We've got to shift it left. And this quote right here, this really gets to the heart of it. This isn't about buying a better log parsing tool. No, this is about building guardrails so that these problems can't even be created in the first place. It's about prevention, not just reaction. Okay, so let's look at what this really means in practice. Over on the left, that's the world most of us live in, right? The reactive world, we find errors in production, we get an alert that PII has already leaked. It's all damage control. But on the right, that's the proactive approach. You're finding errors right in your IDE at compile time. You're blocking code with PII violations from ever being merged. It is a complete game changer. So how do you actually do this? How do you make it real? Well, the first big piece of the puzzle is something called the governance analyzer. And I love this analogy. Think of it as a spell checker for your logs. It's a Roslyn-analyzer that just plugs right into your C# environment, and it knows all the rules you've set for your logging. And listen, this is not just a polite little suggestion. We're talking about build-stopping enforcement. As a developer, the feedback is immediate. Forget to add a required correlation ID? Boom, that's CRBI01, your build fails. Accidentally tried to log a password field? Nope. CRBI02 stops you right there. That feedback loop is instant, and it prevents those mistakes from ever leaving your machine. But, a spell checker is only as good as its dictionary, right? So where are all these rules coming from? How does the analyzer know what to enforce? Well, that brings us to the brains of the operation, the central command center for all your logging governance. The answer is a platform like CerbiShield. It's the system that acts as the single source of truth. It's where you store your rules, you validate them, you deploy them, and you make sure every single developer and every single build pipeline is playing from the exact same rulebook. So the life cycle of a rule is actually pretty simple, and it's super robust. First, an architect or a team lead defines the rules through an API. Then, and this part is crucial, a validation API checks those rules to make sure they're not going to accidentally break everyone's builds. After that, a deploy API pushes the published rules out, and finally, the analyzer on your machine picks them up and starts enforcing them. It's this clean, secure, scalable loop. And deployment is incredibly flexible. It doesn't matter where you keep your configuration. Whether it's in a GitHub repo, an S3 bucket, Azure Blob Storage, whatever, the system can deliver those governance rules right where your build needs them, so it fits into your workflow, not the other way around. Now, obviously, a system that has this much power over your logging policies has got to be secure. I mean, it's a non-starter otherwise. And that's why a platform like this is built on an enterprise-grade security model from the absolute ground up. And this is just foundational, isn't it? You can't enforce rules if the system that defines those rules isn't secure, auditable, and completely trustworthy. Security isn't just another feature here. It's the bedrock of the entire thing. This is often handled through a really comprehensive framework, something called SAIM. It stands for Security, Authorization, Identity, and Management, and it's designed to cover every single aspect of securing the platform. So let's just quickly break that down. Security, That's handled with modern standards like OAuth 2, using providers you already trust, like Azure AD. Authorization is a dynamic, policy-based system, so you have granular control over who can do what. Identity is federated, which means the platform never sees or stores a password. And finally, management gives you that full audit trail and centralized control. It's the real deal for enterprises. Okay, so we've got control, we've got security, but where does this all lead? What's the payoff? This is the exciting part, where we move beyond just enforcing rules and start unlocking some real business intelligence from our super reliable logs. See, by guaranteeing that your logs have this consistent, reliable structure, you're not just preventing errors anymore. You are creating a high-quality data asset, and that asset can be used for so much more than just debugging production issues. One of the interesting things about this whole approach is how you measure its value. Instead of pricing based on noisy metrics like how many gigabytes of logs you're creating, the model is based on what you're actually controlling, the number of applications you're governing. It's a model that scales with the value you get, which makes a lot of sense. And for large organizations, this level of governance unlocks some seriously powerful features. Things like advanced identity support with SAML, deploying different rule sets to different targets, and on-demand reporting with full audit trails. You know, the kinds of features that your security and compliance teams absolutely love. And the vision doesn't stop with just enforcement. This is where it gets really cool. The future roadmap includes things like CerbiIQ, an intelligent router that can send specific logs exactly where they need to go based on the rules. And CerbiSense, a machine learning engine to actually analyze log patterns and predict risks before they even happen. Now we're talking about moving from governance to actual intelligence. This really captures that whole evolution perfectly. The goal isn't just to enforce rules. It's to use that clean, governed data to start making smarter, faster, better decisions. So, what's the big takeaway here? An approach like this fundamentally changes how you think about your logs. They stop being this unpredictable cost center and this potential liability. Instead, they become a structured, reliable, and truly intelligent asset that can actually help drive your business forward. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Imagine for a second that you could trust every single log entry just as much as you trust your compiled, tested code. What new features could you build? What new insights could you find? What new efficiencies could you unlock? What could you build next?